ever wondered why incredibly talented, wildly intelligent people often get stuck sitting at home, while perfectly average people go on to achieve just extraordinary world-changing things? We always assume it's a matter of resources or, a lucky break. But today we're uncovering the exact mechanics of how small, seemingly insignificant actions actually build empires. We're going to walk you through exactly 20 powerful points about the one superpower that guarantees success and how you can master it starting today.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome to Everyday English Flow, daily English practice, natural speaking, and effortless listening flow. If you'd like to support our work, please like and subscribe. It helps us to keep creating high-quality content and bring you even better lessons in the future.
It's so great to be diving into this. What's fascinating here is that we are looking at the absolute bedrock of human achievement, which is consistency. But because our goal is to make this deep dive as practically useful as possible, we really have a dual mission today. We are breaking down the psychology and mechanics of success, but we are also mapping this directly onto language acquisition.
Exactly. This is a step-by-step journey into mastering consistency. But we are also going to use this opportunity to actively level up your English skills.
Yeah, that's the goal.
As we move through these 20 core concepts, we're going to highlight some complex C1 level English words, idioms, and phrasal verbs. But we aren't going to just, read out of a dictionary.
No, far from it. We are going to explore how these words actually function in natural conversation. So you are going to improve your English fluency and listening comprehension while simultaneously learning the neurological and psychological mechanics of getting things done.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We need to start with the foundation.
Right.
The absolute bedrock. Concept number one is just defining what consistency actually is, because I think people completely misunderstand this word.
They definitely do.
When we hear consistency, our brains immediately picture making some massive superhuman effort every single day. We picture waking up at 4 a.m. and running a marathon.
Right, which is exactly why people burn out by day 3.
Yeah.
True consistency isn't about intensity at all. It is about frequency. It's about doing something microscopic every single day instead of a massive effort just once.
Like cramming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of learning English, it's the difference between learning 5 new sentences daily rather than studying for 10 hours straight on a Sunday and then ignoring the language for a month.
That makes so much sense. And the phrase that always comes to mind here, and this is a really vital phrasal verb for our listeners, is to show up.
Yes, to show up.
Yeah.
Literally, it just means to arrive at a physical place. Like, he showed up at the party.
Right.
But in the context of personal growth, it means to be present and ready to execute the work, regardless of your internal state.
Even if you don't feel like it.
Exactly. You do the work, especially when it is difficult, or you are tired, or you are deeply uninspired. You show up.
So an example in natural speech would be, even when she was tired from working 2 jobs, she still showed up for her daily language practice.
Perfect. She didn't have to do a lot, but she arrived.
She arrived.
Right.
And understanding that difference between intensity and frequency brings us to a really profound question, which is point number 2. If consistency is just about small actions, why do so many people fail at it?
That is the million-dollar question.
It really is. It is widely believed that a lack of intelligence is the barrier to success, but it almost never is. The real culprit is a lack of discipline during periods of invisible growth.
Invisible growth. I love that term. And there's a perfect analogy in nature for this, right? The bamboo tree.
Yes, the bamboo tree.
This story completely shifted how I view my own projects.
It's a brilliant biological parallel to human effort. Walk us through it.
So you plant a bamboo seed in the soil and you water it. And for a full year, you see absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all. No green shoots, no leaves, just dirt. You keep watering it for a 2nd year. Nothing. A 3rd year, a 4th year. For 5 whole years, there is 0 visible growth above the ground.
Wow.
But then, in the 5th year, something crazy happens. The bamboo tree shoots up 80 feet tall in just 6 weeks.
Okay, let's pause there for a language moment.
Yeah.
For our language learners, a phenomenal phrasal verb to describe that sudden explosion of growth is shoot up.
Shoot up, right.
When something shoots up, it grows or increases incredibly rapidly. So you would say in the 5th year, the bamboo tree shoots up to 80 feet, or prices shot up at the grocery store.
Right. But here is where it gets really interesting, and this is the psychological mechanism we need to understand. Did that tree really grow 80 feet in 6 weeks?
Not at all. For 5 years, it was growing downwards. It was building this massive, complex root system capable of supporting an 80-foot structure.
Right.
If it hadn't spent 5 years doing the invisible work, the moment it shot up, it would have immediately toppled over from its own weight.
And that slow, invisible period is exactly where human beings quit. They study English for a week, or they go to the gym for a month, and when they don't see immediate visible results, they stop watering the ground.
They abandoned the root system.
Yeah.
Which ties directly into our third point, the internal mechanics of success. Consistency isn't just about getting an external reward like a promotion or a fluent accent. It is primarily an internal mechanism. It is how you build self-respect.
Self-respect. So is it kind of like opening a bank account of trust with yourself?
That is the perfect way to visualize it. When you make a promise to yourself, saying, I will read 1 page of this book today, and then you actually do it, you're making a deposit into your own trust account.
Oh, I see.
Your brain literally begins to rewire its self-image. You start to view yourself as a reliable entity.
But the reverse is also true, right?
Sadly, yes. Breaking those small promises withdraws trust. If you say you are going to practice speaking for 5 minutes, and you choose to scroll on your phone instead, you aren't just losing 5 minutes of practice.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Way bigger. Over time, you build a deep-seated, dangerous neurological belief that you are lazy. You teach your brain that your word means nothing, and you are incapable of execution.
That is terrifying, but it makes so much sense. If you can't trust yourself, you can't build anything. But if you do build that trust, consistency becomes the literal bridge between a dream and reality, which is our fourth point.
The bridge, yes.
Because we all have dreams. Everyone has a grand vision in their head, but the dream stays locked inside your skull until you build a bridge of daily actions to pull it out into the real world.
And one of the most striking examples of building that bridge, brick by microscopic brick, is J.K. Rowling.
Oh, absolutely. The creation of Harry Potter is a masterclass in this. Before she was a famous author, her reality was incredibly grim. She was a single mother. She was battling severe depression. Her manuscript had been rejected by 12 different major publishers, and she was completely broke.
I want to pause on that word. Broke.
Yeah.
This is a highly useful B2 level adjective, and it's important to distinguish it from just being poor or struggling. When someone is broke, they have absolutely zero money.
Completely empty pockets.
Exactly. The bank account is empty. You aren't just on a tight budget.
Yeah.
You could say he couldn't buy the book because he was totally broke.
Right. So Rowling was entirely broke. Her environment was screaming at her to quit, to get a practical job, to stop living in a fantasy world. But she kept adding one brick to the bridge every single day. She kept writing.
Yeah.
If she had broken her consistency, the world would never have seen that universe.
Which brings up our fifth point. And this is a major point of friction for people. I hear this excuse constantly.
Oh, me too. What is it?
People say, I know I need to be consistent, but I'm just not motivated today.
Oh, the motivation myth.
Yes. We need to expose motivation for what it really is. Motivation is a liar.
A liar. How so?
Well, think about what motivation is neurologically. It is a chemical state. It is a spike in dopamine based on external stimuli. Therefore, it is entirely unreliable. It depends on whether the weather is nice, or if you had a good cup of coffee, or if you're just in a good mood.
It's basically an emotional sugar rush.
Exactly. You cannot build a lifelong bridge on a sugar rush. Think of a mother waking up at 2 a.m. to feed a newborn baby.
Oh, man.
She is not motivated to get out of her warm bed. Her dopamine levels are not spiking at the thought of losing sleep.
No, she is completely exhausted.
Yes.
And for our listeners, exhausted is a fantastic C1 level word. It goes far beyond just being tired. It means to be completely drained of all physical and mental energy, like a battery at 0%.
Right.
Like after studying for the exam for 12 straight hours, he was absolutely exhausted.
Perfect context. So the mother is exhausted. Her body is begging for sleep. But she gets up anyway. She holds the child, and she sings a lullaby. Yes. And a lullaby, as a noun, is a soft, gentle, quiet song designed specifically to put a child to sleep. You'd say she sang a sweet lullaby to calm the baby.
So she is completely exhausted, lacking all motivation, yet she sings the lullaby anyway. Why?
Because she is driven by purpose, identity, and responsibility.
Yeah.
She doesn't need motivation because she has a standard. That is what consistency is. It is operating off a standard, not a feeling.
Wow. Okay, that is a massive paradigm shift. We've established the foundation, the mindset of showing up, and visible growth and discarding motivation.
Right.
But before we move into step 2 and look at the actual mechanics of time and struggle, I'm going to take a quick second. If you are finding value in this deep dive so far, please take a second to like, share, and subscribe. It truly helps us reach more learners and keep these deep dives coming.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears to point number 6. Small steps create massive results. How does small daily effort compound in the physical world?
Yeah, how does that actually look?
Well, the fundamental flaw in human planning is that we drastically overestimate what we can accomplish in a single day, but we completely underestimate what we can achieve in a year of sustained effort.
That cognitive bias is so real. I remember there was this story about a man who wanted to write a book, but every time he sat down to write a chapter, his brain would just freeze.
The task felt too massive.
Exactly. It was overwhelming. So he made a new rule. He promised himself he would write just one sentence a day. That was his entire commitment.
Think about the psychology of that. One sentence.
Just one sentence, no word counts, no chapter goals, just one sentence. Because the barrier to entry was so incredibly low, he never felt resistance. He never missed a day.
Wow.
Some days he wrote one sentence and stopped. Other days, that one sentence triggered a flow state and he wrote 10 pages. But within a year, he had a finished manuscript.
Yeah, it's the ancient principle of water breaking a rock.
Yeah.
If you drop a gallon of water on a boulder all at once, the rock doesn't even chip. The water just splashes away.
Oh.
But if you allow a single drop of water to fall in that exact same spot day after day, year after year, it will eventually split the rock in half. It is not the force that creates the result, it is the relentless repetition.
So, moving to point 7, how do we apply this when the repetition is incredibly painful? Because when you start something new, like wrestling with English grammar or starting a business, it's uncomfortable. You feel inadequate.
That struggle is a prerequisite for strength. The friction you feel is actually the mechanism of your growth. You are turning struggle into strength.
Can you give an example?
Consider the story of Eric Thomas. He is now one of the highest paid, most renowned motivational speakers in the world. But when he was younger, he had a severe impediment. He stammered terribly.
Oh, wow. And just to clarify that for our audience, when we say he stammered, we mean he would constantly trip over his words. Stammer is a verb that means to speak with sudden, involuntary pauses or to repeat initial sounds, usually because of intense nerves or physical impediment.
Right.
You might say he was so nervous during the job interview that he began to stammer.
Exactly. His stammer was so bad that other kids mocked him relentlessly. Teachers advised him to avoid any kind of public speaking entirely.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. But instead of hiding, he used the principle of the water drop. He stood in front of a mirror and practiced speaking out loud every single day. He rewired his neural pathways through sheer brute force consistency.
He weaponized his struggle. He didn't let the stammer define him. He let the daily practice define him.
Which is the ultimate form of respecting time, which is our 8th point. We all possess the exact same 24 hours. The billionaire and the bankrupt man both get 1,440 minutes a day. It is how you respect that currency that dictates your reality.
There is a documented story that perfectly illustrates this respect for time. Era is about a petrol pump worker. Now, this guy had a brutal daily schedule. He was working a 12-hour shift, on his feet, pumping gas in the heat, just to survive.
That's grueling.
But his internal vision was to become a high-level government officer, which requires passing the UPSC exam.
Ah, yes. Notoriously, one of the most immensely difficult and competitive examinations on the planet. Millions take it. Only a fraction pass.
Exactly. And he didn't have money for expensive tutors or study materials. But what he did have was time. Not a lot of it, but some. So after finishing his exhausting 12-hour shift, he would go home and study for exactly 2.5 hours every single day.
After a 12-hour physical shift, the mental fortitude that requires is just staggering.
He kept that up for 3 solid years. And after 3 years, he cleared the exam, he became an officer, he respected his small window of time, and eventually time respected him back by multiplying his results.
That compounding effect is essentially how you attract opportunity, which brings us to point 9.
Now, I have to push back a little bit here.
No, go for it.
Whenever we hear stories of someone getting a massive break, a book deal, a government post, a viral video, it's easy to say it was just consistency, but realistically, doesn't luck play a huge part in this?
It is a totally fair question, and the answer is yes, luck is absolutely a factor. But we have to fundamentally reframe how we understand luck. Luck isn't magic, it is a mathematical probability.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Let me give you an example. There was a young visual artist who made a commitment to post one original drawing online every single day. He did this for 3 solid years.
Wow.
For the vast majority of that time, he received 0 applause. No followers, no comments, no recognition. The algorithm completely ignored him.
That's tough.
But he kept posting. Then one afternoon, an art director for a massive entertainment company was casually scrolling, stumbled upon his portfolio, loved his style, and offered him a massive contract that essentially made him a millionaire overnight.
Okay, so the art director finding him on that specific Tuesday, that was luck.
Yes. The timing of the art director's scroll was out of his control. But because the artist had been consistent, he had a backlog of over 1,000 drawings waiting for that director to see.
Oh, I see.
If he had only posted once a month, the probability of the director finding his work would have been near 0. Consistency doesn't replace luck. It drastically increases the surface area for luck to strike. It makes you, as the saying goes, a magnet for miracles.
A magnet for miracles. I love that.
Yeah.
Because you aren't just chasing an opportunity, you are building a body of work so undeniable that eventually the opportunity trips over you.
Precisely. And this highlights point number 10, a brutal truth about the world. The world only respects visible actions, not invisible dreams.
Right.
Everyone has dreams. Go to any coffee shop and you will hear people talking about the app they want to build or how they want to become fluent in a language or write a screenplay. But the market doesn't pay for intentions.
There is a story of a boy from a deeply impoverished area who wanted to be a champion runner. He had absolutely no money for athletic gear. He didn't even have running shoes. So he would wake up at 4 a.m. and run barefoot on a hard, dusty road. His diet consisted of basically just dry bread. He ran until his feet blistered and his legs literally bled. And 3 years later, he stood on a podium with a national gold medal around his neck.
That boy embodied one of the most crucial English idioms for our learners to master, especially at the B2 and C1 levels. Actions speak louder than words.
I love this idiom because it is universally true in every culture.
It means that what you actually do carries far more weight and reveals your true intentions much better than what you say you will do. You can talk about your grand plans all day, but your daily habits tell the real story.
So if I have a friend who constantly talks about moving to London and says he's going to master English, but I never see him open a book or listen to a podcast, I could say, well, actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. The world only rewards your visible, tangible efforts.
Okay, so moving into step 3, the deeper psychological barriers. The excuses we make and the illusions we buy into. Point 11 is one of the biggest illusions out there, the concept of talent. People look at someone who is naturally charismatic or a polyglot who picks up languages easily and they say, well, I wasn't born with that brain, so I can't win.
Talent is nothing more than a bonus. It is a biological starting point. But talent without consistency is completely useless. In fact, it often makes people lazy because they never have to develop the muscle of discipline.
There is a beautiful true story of a young woman from a rural village. She had absolutely 0 natural confidence. Her English pronunciation was broken, and she had a thick accent that people actively laughed at. She had no natural talent for public speaking.
So what was her mechanism for change?
She implemented a rigid rule. She would read 1 page of an English book aloud every single day, and she would record her own voice on her phone to track her progress.
Smart.
She didn't seek an audience, she just analyzed her own audio. She did this day in and day out for 4 years.
4 years.
And 4 years later, that same woman walked onto a TEDx stage and delivered a perfectly fluent, commanding, and powerful speech in English. Today, she runs a business teaching the language to thousands.
She lacked talent, but she possessed consistency. To conceptualize this for our language learners, let's look at the relationship between 2 specific terms. A head start and the finish line.
Right, let's break those down.
A head start is an advantage that someone is granted at the very beginning of a race or a process. If you start a 100-meter sprint at the 20-meter mark, you have a head start. Talent gives you a head start.
But the finish line is the actual end goal. It's the destination.
Right. Talent might give you a head start, but consistency is the absolute only vehicle that will actually carry you across the finish line.
That is a brilliant way to frame it, because moving to point 12, time is the ultimate referee. You cannot cheat time. Time strips away all the marketing, all the fake confidence, and exposes the truth of your actual efforts.
You see this dynamic constantly on social media. The digital landscape is a perfect laboratory for watching time expose effort. Think about YouTube creators.
Oh, yeah.
You often have an aspiring creator who goes out and buys a $5,000 camera, sets up professional lighting, and spends a month editing 3 highly produced videos. They post them, they don't get 1 million views immediately, their ego is bruised, and they completely quit.
And then on the exact same platform, you have another creator. They have terrible lighting, they're recording on an old smartphone with scratchy microphone, and they have 0 editing skills. But they commit to posting 1 video every single day for 365 days.
The algorithm of life, and the literal algorithm of the platform, rewards the frequency of the second person. After a year of daily uploads, they refine their voice, they build a loyal community, and eventually they hit 5 million subscribers. The first person had better gear, but time exposed who was actually willing to do the work.
Which leads us to point 13, and I think this is the most profound part of this entire deep dive: breaking generational curses.
Yes, this is huge.
Because consistency isn't just about getting rich or getting famous. Sometimes it is about survival and altering the trajectory of your entire family line.
There is a very famous story of a young boy who grew up in a severe, deeply impoverished slum. His home life was incredibly unstable. His father struggled with severe alcoholism, and his mother worked grueling hours as a domestic maid just to afford basic food.
Just a really tough situation.
The environment was essentially designed for him to fail.
But this boy refused to accept that reality. Because they had no electricity at home, he would take his books and sit under a public street lamp at night to read. When it rained, he would walk 5 kilometers through the mud to attend a free coaching center.
Incredible.
He maintained this intense, quiet consistency for years, and eventually he passed the state exams and became an IAS officer. In 1 generation, he completely lifted his entire family out of systemic poverty.
The language focus here is crucial because it touches on sociology. The phrase generational curse. This is a C1 level phrase. When we say curse in this context, we are not talking about magic or a witch's stool.
No Harry Potter stuff here.
Exactly. A generational curse refers to a deeply ingrained, harmful pattern of suffering, poverty, trauma, or bad habits that is passed down through a family from one generation to the next.
Because children model what they see, so the cycle repeats.
Precisely. It says sociological loop. So you would use it in a sentence like this. Through relentless hard work and education, she finally broke the generational curse of poverty in her family. Consistency is the hammer you use to shatter that cycle so your children don't inherit your struggles.
That is heavy, but incredibly empowering. So, moving to point 14, if we know we need to break these cycles, why do we let our emotions stop us? Because emotion is the ultimate trap. Emotion will constantly whisper in your ear, you've worked hard, just skip today, take a break.
Emotion is a terrible master. It is reactionary. There is a psychological case study of a woman who desperately wanted to improve her physical fitness. But for years, she would start a routine and then quit within a week. Because every time she woke up feeling sad or tired or stressed from work, she would listen to that emotion and stay in bed. She was relying on her feelings to dictate her actions.
So how do you bypass the emotional brain? Because you can't just start feeling tired.
You bypass it through environmental design. She realized she couldn't trust her morning emotions. So she started placing her running shoes directly next to her bed every single night. She laid out her workout clothes on her nightstand, and she made a non-negotiable contract with herself. She only had to walk for 2 minutes.
Just 2 minutes.
Even if she was crying or exhausted or angry, she just had to put the shoes on and walk out the door for 120 seconds.
I want to highlight the phrasal verb you just used there, to lay out.
Yes. Layout means to arrange things carefully and visibly so that they're ready for immediate use. Like, I lay out my study materials on my desk every night so I am ready to learn in the morning.
By laying out her clothes, she completely removed the emotional decision-making process. She didn't have to think, she just had to step into the shoes.
Exactly. She minimized the friction between intention and action. Because, and this is point 15, laziness isn't just about enjoying a rest. Laziness is actually a silent transaction.
A transaction, no, typically that's a B2 business word, right? Like swapping cash for a product at a store.
Correct. A transaction is an exchange of values. But in the context of life and time, every choice is a transaction. When you choose to sleep in for an extra hour instead of working on your English vocabulary, you are making a transaction.
Yeah.
You're taking the currency of your potential and buying temporary physical comfort.
I knew a guy who perfectly exemplified this. He had this brilliant business plan. Every time we got coffee, he would talk about it. But when it came time to actually file the paperwork or build the prototype, he would say, I'll do it next month. I just need to relax this weekend.
Yep. delaying.
He kept delaying. And 5 years later, he had to sit back and watch a former colleague of his, who actually took consistent action on a very similar idea, build a multi-million-dollar company. His laziness caused his dreams to literally rot away.
The word for that rotting process is decay. This is a fantastic C1 vocabulary word. To decay means to slowly break down, rot, or lose strength and quality over a period of time. You usually hear it used for organic matter, like an old building decaying or a piece of fruit decaying on a counter. But it applies to human potential as well.
So you could say, without daily practice, your language skills will slowly decay.
Exactly. It's the silent decay of potential. If you aren't actively building it, time is actively decaying it. Entropy is always at work.
Wow. Okay, we are entering the final phase of our deep dive. Step 4, ultimate ownership and legacy. This brings us to point 16, which requires a very difficult shift in mindset. You have to realize that you are your own rescue team.
This is a tough pill to swallow. Human beings have a natural tendency to adopt an external locus of control. We sit around waiting for a mentor to discover us, or a lucky break to happen, or a rich friend to invest in us. We wait to be saved. But the cold, hard truth is that no one is coming.
There's a story of a young woman who was trapped in an incredibly toxic relationship. For years, she played the victim, and rightfully so. She was suffering. She kept waiting for her family or her friends to notice how bad it was and pull her out of it.
Right?
But one day, she looked in the mirror and realized that if she didn't save herself, she was going to die in that situation.
She took ultimate ownership.
Yes. She quietly packed her bags, she left, and she moved to a tiny apartment. She had no degree. So she used the internet to teach herself graphic design, practicing for hours every single night. Fast forward a few years, and she has built a massive 10 crore design brand.
Let's dissect the word toxic here, because it has become very popular in modern English. It is a B2 level word. Literally, it means poisonous, like a toxic chemical. But when we apply it to relationships, workplaces, or environments, it means something that is highly harmful, emotionally damaging, or deeply abusive.
Right. You might say she realized her work environment was completely toxic with constant gossip and manipulation, so she quit to protect her mental health.
She had to rescue herself from that toxicity. Because moving to point 17, if you avoid the pain of rescuing yourself today, it transforms into a much worse pain later. Pain avoided always becomes regret.
It is the classic high school archetype, isn't it? The kid who just wants to party, play video games, and avoid all the friction and pain of studying or practicing discipline. They choose immediate pleasure.
But fast forward 15 years. That exact same boy is now a man with no savings, stuck in a dead-end job he hates, and he is forced to watch his disciplined, focused schoolmates travel the world, build businesses, and live freely.
So it's essentially a choice between two different types of pain.
Exactly. You cannot escape pain in life. You either consciously choose the temporary constructive pain of discipline today, or you will be forced to endure the agonizing permanent pain of regret tomorrow. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons.
Which brings us to point 18. Time is a zero-sum game. Every wasted second is someone else's gain. Time isn't just hitting a pause button when you procrastinate, the clock keeps ticking.
Think of it in competitive terms. Imagine a young filmmaker who spends 5 hours a day mindlessly scrolling social media, looking at other people's lives.
We all do it.
Meanwhile, across town, another aspiring filmmaker is using those exact same 5 hours. They are shooting a zero-budget short film on their phone, learning lighting, writing scripts.
The first one just freely handed over their competitive advantage.
Exactly. And the second filmmaker eventually gets noticed by a studio and goes to Hollywood. This introduces a great English idiom, a stepping stone. Literally, a stepping stone is a flat rock you step on to cross a muddy river without getting wet. But metaphorically, it means an action, an experience, or a piece of knowledge that helps you advance toward a much larger goal.
So the second filmmaker used every single hour as a stepping stone to Hollywood, while the first filmmaker just stood on the riverbank and threw their stones into the water.
That is a perfect analogy. You're either building stepping stones or you are sinking. Which brings us to point 19, and this requires an identity shift. You cannot remain the exact same person and expect to experience a different life. If you want version 2.0 of your life, you have to kill off version 1.0 of yourself.
People want the drastic changes. They want the higher income, the fluent English, the healthy body, but they completely refuse to change their daily habits to match that new identity.
Yeah.
There is a story of a woman who was deeply unhappy with where her life was heading, so she decided to execute a total system reboot. She didn't just add good habits, she mercilessly removed the bad ones. She stopped eating junk food, she stopped binge-watching television, and she stopped hanging out with a group of friends who did nothing but gossip and complain.
Wow.
Within 1 year, her physical appearance, her career, and her mindset were completely unrecognizable.
The key mechanism in her transformation is represented by a vital phrasal verb, to cut off.
Right, to sever something completely.
Yes. Cut off means to completely stop, disconnect, or abruptly remove someone or something from your life. For example, he realized his habits were destroying his future, so he had to cut off his negative friends in order to focus on his university studies. You have to cut off the dead weight of your old self to allow the new self to grow.
And finally, point 20. The culmination of all these small, daily, invisible choices, the absolute final concept is legacy. When it is all said and done, when the clock runs out, what is left behind? It is only what you did, never what you dreamed.
Ultimately, the world divides into two types of people, the dreamers and the doers. Consider a man who spent his entire life talking about writing a brilliant philosophical novel. He had notebooks full of ideas. He would hold court at dinner parties passionately explaining his plot lines. But he never actually sat down in a quiet room to write consistently.
Right.
When he passed away, his friends stood at his funeral and said he had so much potential.
But his potential was buried with him. The dreams died in his head.
Now compare that to a woman who saw a desperate need to educate young girls in rural, impoverished villages. She didn't have a massive funded master plan. She didn't hold press conferences. She just sat down in the dirt and started teaching one single girl every day. Then 2 girls.
Consistency.
Over a lifetime of quiet consistency, she changed thousands of lives. Today, there is a massive concrete school built in her name, educating the next generation.
She left a physical, undeniable legacy.
Because life is not a rehearsal. That is our final piece of B2 vocabulary. A rehearsal is a practice session for a performance, like actors practicing before opening night of a play. But human life isn't practice. Life is not a rehearsal, this is the live show. The legacy you leave is built solely on the cumulative actions you take on a random Tuesday when no one is watching.
Okay, let's bring all of this abstract theory down to the ground. We have explored the mechanics of consistency, from the invisible roots of the bamboo tree to breaking generational curses. Now, we need to give you, the listener, a concrete, practical action plan so you can start right now.
The secret here is to keep it almost insultingly simple. Do not try to change your entire life tomorrow.
Exactly. Here is your action plan. Pick one small thing. Just one, not 5. If you are focusing on language learning, maybe it is writing exactly 5 English sentences a day in a notebook, or reading exactly 1 page of an English book. Do it daily. And here is the most important part. Completely ignore the results for the first 6 months. Do not look for the bamboo tree to shoot up. Just focus entirely on the identity of showing up.
And as promised at the beginning of this deep dive, we have a bonus psychological trick for you to guarantee that you maintain this consistency. It is a cognitive hack called sharpening your axe daily, and it is built around the 2-minute rule.
No, I use this rule all the time. How does it work neurologically?
When you think about studying for an hour or going for a 5-mile run, your brain's amygdala actually registers that large task as a threat. It triggers a stress response, which creates the feeling of procrastination. But 2 minutes, the brain perceives no threat. So if you wake up and you absolutely do not feel like practicing your English, make a deal with yourself. Tell your brain, I am not going to study. I am only going to open the English book and look at it for exactly 2 minutes. Then I will stop.
And because 2 minutes is so easy, you bypass the emotional resistance.
Exactly. You shrink the cognitive load. And what happens 99% of the time is that once the book is open, the habit of starting is engaged. Newton's law of motion takes over. An object in motion stays in motion. The hardest part of any task is simply crossing the starting line.
I love that. 2 minutes. Literally anyone, no matter how busy or exhausted, can do 2 minutes.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with one final, slightly uncomfortable thought to really mull over tonight. Imagine your future self, 10 years from now, walks into the room. If that future version of you could see exactly how you utilized your 24 hours today, would they shake your hand and thank you? Or would they be furiously angry with you for wasting their potential?
That is a chilling, but absolutely necessary question to ask yourself every morning. I want you to make a tangible commitment right now. Go down to the comment box and write by a flight. I am consistent to publicly lock in your new mindset. Also, please write your feedback in the comments. Which kind of topic do you want for the next video? If you enjoyed this podcast, there are many more podcasts on my channel. Go check them out. Focus on language learning, speaking, and listening. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next deep dive.